Have you ever felt like your emotions are too much? Or like you keep sabotaging relationships and don't know why? You're probably carrying more than just stress or insecurity. This is actually something that's very symptomatic of attachment trauma. Hi, I'm Laura Bonk, therapist and founder of Pathways Counseling KC. In this episode of Healing Attachment Trauma, we're going to explore 10 signs that you may have attachment trauma without even knowing it. This is especially true for what goes unnoticed in your life, even by you. These signs don't always look like trauma. In fact, they actually often show up as overfunctioning, someone who is seemingly doing very well in life. Can show up as quiet pain, or even self-protection that no one sees and that you don't even know you're doing. So let's walk through these together. Sign 1. You feel like you're too much and not enough all at the same time. You may feel like you're overwhelming to others, but also like you don't matter at the same time. You second guess your emotions, apologize for needing help, and feel like you're always just not quite enough. This often stems from inconsistent caregiving, where sometimes you were nurtured and other times ignored or criticized. Your brain learned, I have to shrink to be safe. And this can be a really painful experience because essentially what we're doing is teaching ourselves that we don't matter and it's not safe to be seen. This is a sign that can show up really for all of the insecure attachment styles. If you remember from the previous video, we went over all of them at just a very high level. But this one can show up in all 3 insecure attachment styles, but more specifically, anxious attachment and fearful avoidant attachment. That feeling that you have to shrink or make yourself invisible in order to be safe, while also approaching and trying to people please and meet other people's needs in order to maintain connection. Super painful experience. Sign number 2, you're deeply afraid of being abandoned, even when things seem fine. Maybe your partner takes a little longer to reply to a message, and suddenly your chest tightens and your mind spins out, goes down all of the worst case scenarios that could be happening. You might go into panic, you over apologize or seek assurance, not because you're clingy, but because emotional loss felt very real growing up. This is something that you actually experienced in some form in childhood. And the fear now is being projected from those past experiences onto your current reality. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, but it feels very real and very much like it is going to happen. A lot of times when this is happening to us, we can feel like we're being dramatic, but it's not. This fear is not dramatic, it's neurological. Your attachment system is wired for constant scanning when safety never felt certain in childhood. Sign number 3, you crave closeness but feel overwhelmed when you get it. You want that deep connection. You fantasize or imagine feeling fully seen and understood by someone or multiple people in your life. But when someone finally does show up emotionally for you, you feel yourself shutting down, getting irritated, or needing space. This can be very confusing, especially in romantic relationships. It often points to a nervous system that associates love with unpredictability or pain. So closeness doesn't feel safe, even when it's healthy, and even when we're deeply desiring and craving it. This can often show up as a sign that you might have more of an avoidant, leaning attachment style, whether that's completely dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant. Dismissive avoidant, again, just to kind of do a brief summary over what we talked about in the last episode, dismissive avoidant is still someone who really does want connection. However, they are afraid of letting people get too close. So they kind of always keep people at an arm's distance. And if someone's getting too close, then they will pull away. And this, again, is just because of the conditioning that they experienced in childhood. It is not your fault that this is how you learned to survive. It's actually, again, a very adaptive survival mechanism as a child going through a situation where you had no control. However, it can lead to very painful experiences in adulthood. Same thing with fearful avoidant. It's a little bit different here. Fearful avoidant attachment style usually really, really craves closeness and connection. They typically really value that. However, they're also afraid of getting hurt and a huge fear of betrayal at the same time. So this creates that back and forth, like, oh, I really want you to come here, but if you get too close, I'm not just going to pull away, probably going to push you away. And that can look a lot of different ways, and we'll definitely go into that deeper in other videos. But sign number 3 here, again, if you find yourself doing this, it's possible that you have either a dismissive avoidant attachment style or fearful avoidant. And again, this is a spectrum. So it doesn't have to be such a black and white category, but dismissive avoidant definitely feels this. Fearful avoidant feels it as well, but just in a different way. Number 4, you chronically people please and lose yourself in relationships. Essentially, you morph, you're camouflage, or you kind of consider yourself to be a chameleon of sorts. Oftentimes, I've heard people say that this is something they're proud of, that they can change who they are, or almost like be a chameleon depending on who they're with. And this is definitely a skill that you've learned to survive. So again, you might become someone, or you might become who someone needs you to be. In order to feel valued, in order to feel safe. You don't know where you end and others begin. You may feel like your worth is tied to how useful or how likable you are. You say yes, even when you mean no. You say yes to avoid conflict, which is a form of betraying your own boundaries and your own sense of self. This is, again, often a survival response from childhood, where being compliant or attuned to others' needs was the only way to feel safe or loved. Sign number 5, you struggle to trust others even when they've done nothing wrong. You find yourself questioning others' intentions. You're always bracing for the moment they turn on you, they ghost you, or they just stop caring about you. Maybe you've let someone in and now you're just waiting for them to see that there actually is something wrong with you, that you're bad in some way, and that they will abandon you. Or you've let someone get too close and you're afraid they're going to use you in some way. Even when someone is consistent, like let's just say you're in a relationship with someone who's showing up consistently and they haven't given you a reason to doubt them, still part of you can't relax. You wonder, do they really like me? Are they just saying that? Are they just being polite? There's just an underlying fear of trusting this person completely. Again, even when they've given you no reason to distrust them. So that mistrust, as you've guessed, may come from early relationships that felt emotionally unstable, where love was given but then taken away. Oftentimes, again, a lot of these signs, and I know I'm not going into detail on all of them, on which specific attachment style they can fall under, just because I'm trying to keep this video a little bit shorter. Otherwise, I'll go on and on. But this sign, especially that mistrust where love was given but then taken away, this is definitely a hallmark of the fearful avoidant attachment style. Basically, fearful avoidants learn in childhood that love equals betrayal or equals pain. And that's the hot and cold, the like, I want this love, I want it, but then fearing it at the exact same time. And again, that's because in childhood they experienced that in some form where love was there, but then taken away. And that can come in various reasons or situations. But for example, maybe a parent was narcissistic and saw this child, as narcissists often do, saw this child as an extension of themselves. And so one minute the child is performing very well for that narcissistic parent, and whatever that means at the time, and that can just be providing that parent emotional support. But as soon as that child then shows up as themselves and has their own needs, the narcissistic parent is not going to be okay with that. They're going to react in different ways, but definitely pull away that love. So essentially, someone who has this mistrust of relationships and mistrust of the other person that they're in the relationship with has learned that love is conditional and that it will be taken away and that it will hurt them.